A New World. Table of Contents. Chapter 1, Portal. Chapter 2, Superpowers. Michael discovers his new superpowers and studies them. Chapter 3, Facing Evil. Michael engages in a battle with villains who want to enslave the fantasy world. Chapter 4, Friendship. Michael finds new friends in the fantasy world and they fight together against evil. Chapter 5, Return. Michael and his friends find a way to return to the real world, but they don't want to leave their new world unprotected. Chapter 6, Helping Those in Need. Michael uses his abilities to help those in need in his home world. Chapter 7, A New Clash. Michael and his friends face villains and sorcerers in their home world. Chapter 8, Victory. Michael and his friends once again triumph over evil and defend their worlds. Chapter 9, Consequences. Michael realizes his responsibility and continues to use his abilities to help others. Chapter 10, Travel. Michael continues to visit the fantasy world to see his. Chapter 1, Portal. Chapter 1, Portal. Michael Parker was an ordinary young man from New York. His life was routine. Work in the office, football on weekends, and a few games on the computer. But one day, when he was walking home after work, Michael saw a strange light around the corner. He walked towards the light and found a large circular portal, rapidly changing colors inside itself. Under the influence of curiosity, Michael decided to come closer to the portal to take a closer look at it. And without warning, he felt the force from the portal fly out, grab him and then suck him inside. When Michael opened his eyes, he was stunned. He was in a huge meadow filled with colorful flowers and grasses with colorful butterflies wrapped around him. He saw a huge tree in the distance, which glowed with a red light, like lights inside it. Michael couldn't believe his eyes. He looked around and saw strange creatures that looked like dwarves and elves who lived quietly next to themselves. Michael understood that he had entered a new world where any kind of things could happen and where everything that used to be ordinary in his ordinary life had disappeared. He didn't know what to do or where to look for help. However, Michael was sure that he was not alone in this new world. He knew that there were many other intelligent beings here who could help him understand this magical world. Chapter 2, Superpowers. Michael spent his first day in the new world, studying its life and the creatures that lived here. He learned that this world is filled with magic and secrets, where everyone has their own abilities and skills. However, Michael felt uncomfortable, as he did not have any superpowers. On the second day, when Michael explored the neighborhood, he discovered that he had become the owner of incredible strength. He could easily lift heavy loads and run fast, and his reaction to sudden movements improved more than twice. At first it was not clear to him, but at the same time, the feeling of his own strength gave him confidence and more self-confidence in this unfamiliar world. He began to study his new abilities in depth, test them in practice and figure out how to control them. Every day he felt more and more at home in his new body, getting new information about the animals and plants of the world, talking with the locals and studying magic. Soon, Michael found that his superpowers were not limited to mere strength. He could see in the dark, he had an insurmountable immunity to magic spells, he could change the shape of his body and fly. All these superpowers seemed incomprehensible and unexpected to him, but at the same time they gave him unique opportunities and completely changed his life. Knowing that he did not consciously invoke his abilities, Michael began to explore their depths in order to better understand himself and his capabilities. Now he was not just a resident of the new world, but also the owner of superpowers that he could use to his advantage. And now he had a lot of options in front of him, he had to choose which of these could be useful and which could not. Chapter 3, Facing Evil. Michael continued to study his superpowers and hone his skills in the fantasy world. He understood that his mission was to protect the world from evil and keep it a peaceful and wonderful place to live. However, one day our hero has to face a new challenge. An evil group of villains, controlled by dark sorcerers, began to capture and enslave the inhabitants of the fantasy world. Michael called on his skills and superpowers to resist this evil. He understood that he was in danger and had been trapped by villains many times. But he did not give up and continued to fight. His knowledge of magic and his ability to avoid traps helped him stay alive and protect others. One day, when he was wandering in search of a missing group of Earthlings, Michael came across a group of villains who seemed to be preparing a trap for him. Deciding that this was an incredible chance to get to the hidden base of the villains, he entered into battle with them. He found himself in another world, where the walls shone with magic and the villains radiated strength and malice. Michael did not let them win, he was persistent and firm in his actions. He uses his abilities to defeat the villains and free the prisoners. At the end of the fight, when Michael won, the villains tried to kill him, but he was ready for it and was able to survive. It was a very difficult fight, but he learned a lot and returned to his world with a deeper understanding of what awaits him next time. Chapter 4, Friendship. When Michael got into the fantasy world, he was completely alone. He was seized with fear and anxiety, because he did not know where he was going and what would happen to him. But soon he was lucky enough to find new friends. It was Ellie and Kyle. Ellie was an archer with long shiny hair. She carried Michael across the river and taught him how to shoot an arrow. Michael soon realized that Ellie wasn't just losing her arrows, which almost always hit the target. She really cares about her teammates, risking her life to help her friends. Later, Michael met Kyle. Kyle was a young warrior who held his sword as if he was born for it. He taught Michael a lot, including how to fight monsters and defeat them easily. Michael was very glad that he had found friends in this strange world. He felt that he was no longer alone in this new environment, but now had the support and help of his comrades. One day, when they were fighting villains who were trying to take over the whole world, they decided to stop the evil Hugo. Hugo was a powerful and dangerous seducer who wanted to become the king of the whole world. Hugo was surrounded by his army of cruel monsters, but Michael and his friends did not lose heart and fought to the last. Michael, along with Ellie and Kyle, heroically confronted the enemy, defending each other. They were smarter and faster than all the other opponents in the whole world. With the help of cunning and dexterity, they led to victory. After defeating Hugo, they realized the true power of friendship. They exchanged iron hugs, shared deep thoughts and laughed, realizing that they were not just comrades in arms, but also true friends. Since then, the three have been inseparable, continuing to fight for their strange but beautiful world. Michael has found a new family in this world that is always worried about his well-being and that always stands behind him. Chapter 5. Return. Michael and his friends have already spent a lot of time in the fantasy world, but they began to feel nostalgia and a desire to return to the real world. They learned of a way to return to their homes. However, the solution was not easy. They did not want to leave their friends in the fantasy world that gave them so much. Michael, Ellie and Kyle decided to look for a way to stay in the world that wanted them. They began to explore their new world to find magical items that can help them protect this world from destruction. They knew it would be difficult, but they were ready for this challenge. First, they found an amulet that gives its owner magical powers. Kyle took over this amulet because he was an experienced warrior and could use it in the best way. Then they found a healing potion that helped to remove all the lesions and vulnerabilities so that their bodies were ready for anything. The search continued until they found an ancient scroll. But this scroll was unusual, it was enchanted. They soon realized that it was impossible to use it until it was solved. The solution was very difficult, but they did not give up. Eventually, they found a way to unravel the spell, and the scroll gave them magical weapons tools that could defeat enemies using good against evil. Their equipment was now ready, and they were ready to fight for their new world. They have fought many battles and protected the world from many dangers. Finally found the time to use a way to return to the real world. They felt strange when they found themselves in their real bodies. They exchanged parting words with friends who now lived in their hearts, and whom they will never forget. But they swore that if ever the need arose, they would return to their new world to protect it from all threats. And now that they were in the real world, they never forgot about their friends. They knew that they had a new home in this world, which they had found so unexpectedly, and which they would always remember with warmth in their hearts. Chapter 6. Helping those in need. After a long absence from the fantasy world, Michael returned to his home world. Having experienced many adventures, he realized that he had acquired many skills and possessed abilities that could help people in his native country. He understood that he could not stay in his little world and had to use his new skills to help those in need. The first thing Michael decided to do was to help homeless people he noticed on the streets. He started by donating money to a house for the homeless and then began to give them food and clothes, preparing a daily lunch for them. Michael was surprised how hopeless people often had enough simple hot food to restore their working capacity and strength. Watching their gratitude, Michael realized that small things can help people cope with big difficulties. Then Michael started doing charity work that helps sick children. He participated in charity events and gave them many gifts, and also spent his time spending their time in the hospital. The joy that the children experienced while spending time with Michael was indescribable, and he felt how his abilities helped them improve their mood and state of mind. After a while, Michael found out about the Children's Center, where they were supposed to come to hold entertainment events, animation and masterclasses. Michael was attracted by these ideas, and he decided to become an independent volunteer at a children's center. For several months, he conducted games, masterclasses and lectures that took into account the interests of children, showing a lot of interesting and fascinating things. Michael saw how the children blossomed by taking part in his classes, and at the end of each event he was surrounded by children trying to listen to stories about his adventures from the fantasy world. Michael continued to help those who needed his help, and his skillful hands brought benefit and joy to many people. Soon he learned about working in charitable organizations, where he needed help in projects to combat poverty, first aid in disasters and other critical situations. Michael decided to join a charity and become a volunteer. This gave him the opportunity to work in a team, with other enthusiasts who shared his desire to help those who were in trouble. The desire to help people determined a new path for Michael, and he began to do charity work constantly, learned to feel more subtly what and when it was necessary, developed sensitivity and somewhat improved his talents. Michael was aware that everyday life is full of incredibly complex problems and unpredictable situations, and he was ready to help anyone who needed his support and help. Chapter 7. A New Collision. Michael and his friends decided to spend a non-formative day with each other in the park. Their plans, however, were disrupted when they came across a group of strange people who suddenly appeared in the park. The appearance of these people was bizarre. They were dressed in black suits, with long sleeves and hoods that completely covered their faces. These people were obviously magicians, and Michael and his friends were on their guard. However, before they could say anything, the magicians, at one point, began to use their magic power. They conjured various spells and produced incredible things, such as tantalizing lights that it was impossible to look away from, or a ball of snakes that fell from the sky. At first, Michael and his friends were surprised and intrigued by the effects that the magicians showed, but then they realized that something bad was happening. Magicians became more and more aggressive, directing their magic against the people around them, and Michael decided that his job was to stand up and protect those who could not protect themselves. He quickly realized that magicians use dark magic and they have an attachment to an ancient black spell that has long been banned in his native country, but was still known to the souls of those who sought power and control. At first, Michael tried to convince the magicians to stop their aggression, but his words were ignored. Using his new skills and experience gained in the fantasy world, Michael challenged the magicians. In battle, Michael used his knowledge of magic to evade his traps and spells that tried to be used against him. He and his friends used their powers to attack magicians and protect those who needed their help. The battle was intense and lasted for a long time until all the magicians were defeated and sent to prison. After the battle was over, Michael was imbued with a bitter sense of his new reality. He learned that his home world was as confusing and dangerous as any other world he could enter through the gate. He understood that now he must use his new skills not only to help those who need his help, but also to fight against the evil that is in every corner of his home world. Chapter 8. Victory. Michael and his friends were urgently summoned to the Council of the Wise after a mysterious stone of power was stolen from the treasury. An evil wizard known as the Dark Magician stole the stone and used its power to summon an army of monsters that threatened to enslave all the worlds and subjugate them to his will. Michael and his friends knew they were on a dangerous mission to save the Power Stone, but they couldn't let a Dark Magician destroy their worlds. Leading their team, they set off on a journey through all the worlds to stop the villain and return the Stone of Power to its place. The path was filled with dangers and difficulties, but Michael and his friends continued to move forward, finding new clues and fighting monsters that hindered them on the way. Finally, they found a Dark Magician in a castle that stood on top of a mountain. The battle was fierce, but Michael and his friends were so strong that the Dark Magician was amazed. They returned the Power Stone to its place, and the magical powers in the worlds were restored again. Michael and his friends were heroes who defeated evil and protected their worlds. Their reward was the gratitude and respect of the inhabitants of all worlds. But Michael and his friends knew that they would always be on guard and protect their worlds, as new challenges would be presented to them. They came out of the adventure with a new experience that will help them get through any difficulties. Michael and his friends realized that self-belief and confidence in their actions are the key to victory. They were ready for any challenges and knew that they could always count on them. So Michael and his friends defeated evil again and defended their worlds. Chapter 9. Consequences. Michael felt a huge responsibility on his shoulders after he had completed his last task. He understood that now that he was a celebrity, people expected a lot from him. Michael knew it wasn't easy, but he was ready to handle the difficulties. Michael continued to use his abilities to help others. He helped doctors save lives, firefighters put out fires, searched for missing people and fought the most complex criminal schemes. There was not a single case when Michael refused to help. His friends were busy with their own affairs and were almost never free to help him. Michael was alone, but he was strong and brave. He knew that his responsibility was huge, and he could not remain inactive. Every time he provided help, his abilities became stronger and more powerful. Michael noticed that his ability to penetrate people's thoughts became deeper and deeper, and his speed and strength reached incredible heights. Michael was glad that he could help people and make their lives better. He knew that this was his calling, and he was ready to live with this responsibility. He looked at every day as a new adventure, ready to accept challenges and help everyone he could. As time went on, Michael continued to use his abilities to help people. He became a legend, and his name became a symbol of hope and salvation for many people. But Michael was still the same brave and strong guy who remained true to his beliefs and was ready to help everyone in need. Michael understood that his responsibility was huge, but he looked at the future with bright hopes and was ready for any challenges. He knew for sure that he would never face any obstacles that he could not overcome. Chapter 10. Journeys. Michael has visited the fantasy world more than once, and each time his visit became more and more exciting. Each trip was filled with new adventures for him and meetings with friends he had known for a long time. This time, Michael found himself in a fantasy world that was destroyed by evil that he had not yet seen. Each journey was a set of challenges for him, but this time was special for him. He had to unite all races to stop evil. Michael met many races that fought among themselves, but the evil was so great that the forces were equal only by uniting. Michael understood that he had to do everything in his power to protect the victims and bring peace to this fantasy world. He went in search of his old friends to unite them and create a powerful army that will cope with evil. Michael remembered each of his friends: barbarian, elf, dwarf, orc, and each of them had unique skills and abilities. Michael united all his old friends and they began to perform incredible feats to stop evil. They went through many paths that carried many difficulties, risks and dangers, but they were ready to go to the end to protect their home and their friends. Each of the quests was a new and beautiful path for Michael and his friends. They discovered new lands, met new heroes, and fought new monsters. All this made Michael feel alive and a real hero. At the end of their journey, Michael and his friends found a powerful dragon that threatened the fantasy world. He was so strong and powerful that no one dared to challenge him. But Michael and his friends were ready for this challenge and they attacked the dragon. The battle was hard and the dwarf paid for his life, but in the end Michael and his friends emerged victorious. They stopped the evil that threatened the magical world and returned all the magic and good to its original state. Michael was happy that he was traveling in this fantasy world and that he could help his friends. He knew that they would always be there for him and ready to help him at any moment. Each new journey was a wonderful adventure for him, which he will never forget. A few words from the author. Dear readers. The New World. Michael's travels into the fantasy world and his fight against evil is my favorite story that I wrote with great love and diligence. I hope that you also felt the spirit of adventure and magic that accompanies Michael's every step in this fantastic world. I believe that each of us somewhere deep down dreams of mysterious worlds and incredible adventures, such as Michael's. But I am also convinced that true heroism exists not only in fantasy worlds, but also here in our world. Let Michael's story be a source of inspiration for those who are willing to fight for what they believe in and protect those they love. Let's make our world a better place, and it will be like that fantastic world where Michael was able to find his